stop everything you're doing because the Supreme Court just sent a message that every gun owner in America cannot afford to ignore. This is not a routine legal update, and it's not just another headline in the news cycle. This is a landmark ruling that could fundamentally reshape how millions of Americans understand and exercise their Second Amendment rights. If you own a firearm, are considering owning one, or even care about your constitutional freedoms, the implications of this decision are massive. The court's message is clear, direct, and urgent. Your rights are real. They are protected, but understanding them and acting responsibly has never been more critical. The Supreme Court's decision comes at a time when the national conversation about guns has never been more polarized. Across the United States, states have been enacting laws that either expand access to firearms or impose stricter regulations, often leaving citizens confused about what is legal and what isn't. In this context, the court's ruling serves as a clarifying beacon. While the legal arguments involved are intricate and nuanced, the takeaway for gun owners is simple. The Second Amendment remains a fundamental right, but there are boundaries that everyone must respect. Laws that overstep or infringe upon the core protections of the Constitution will now face heightened scrutiny. At the center of this ruling is a case that tested the balance between individual rights and public safety. The justices had to decide whether certain restrictions imposed by state and federal authorities were constitutional or if they unlawfully limited the rights guaranteed by the Second Amendment. This is not a theoretical debate. The outcome affects everyday Americans who carry firearms, whether for self-defense, sport, or collection. By issuing a clear decision, the Supreme Court is signaling that while gun ownership is a protected right, it carries responsibilities that are not optional. Law-abiding citizens must understand both their rights and their limits. For gun owners, this ruling provides clarity on previously murky areas of the law. Issues surrounding concealed carry, background checks, and lawful possession have often been confusing due to inconsistent state laws and shifting federal guidelines. Now, with this Supreme Court decision, there is a more defined legal framework. States must ensure that their laws align with the court's interpretation of the Constitution, and individuals must understand where their rights begin and end. This is not the time to assume that previous practices are automatically legal. Knowledge of the law is now essential to protect yourself from unintentional violations. One of the most striking aspects of the court's message is the emphasis on modern realities. The justices recognize that firearms, their technology, and their prevalence in American life have changed dramatically since prior rulings. Ownership patterns, self-defense concerns, and public safety needs have all evolved. By acknowledging these factors, the court demonstrates an understanding that constitutional interpretation must remain relevant to the times. However, this also means that gun owners are expected to adapt. The law is no longer static, and being unaware of current legal standards can have serious consequences. Staying informed is not optional. It's a duty. The decision also underscores personal responsibility. Owning a firearm is not simply a right to be exercised freely. It is a responsibility that comes with legal and ethical obligations. The Supreme Court made it clear that lawful gun ownership is a privilege that requires understanding and compliance with both state and federal regulations. This includes knowing where and how you can carry your firearm, how to store it securely, and how to interact with law enforcement. Responsible gun owners will take this seriously because ignorance of the law is no longer a safe defense. Politically, this ruling sends shockwaves. Lawmakers who may have been considering sweeping new restrictions or changes to existing regulations now have a clear constitutional framework they must follow. Overly restrictive laws that fail to respect the Second Amendment are likely to face serious legal challenges. Conversely, states seeking to regulate firearms responsibly now have a guideline for how to balance public safety with individual rights. This decision reshapes the political landscape, providing a blueprint for both legislators and gun rights advocates moving forward. Legal analysts are already predicting that this ruling will have long-term ripple effects. Lower courts across the nation will reference this decision in future cases, influencing interpretations of gun laws for years to come. Lawsuits involving concealed carry permits, self-defense claims, and firearm possession will now be judged against this precedent. For gun owners, this is a critical moment to educate themselves, review their compliance with existing laws, and stay alert to evolving legal interpretations. Being proactive could prevent unnecessary legal trouble and protect constitutional rights. It is crucial to understand that the Supreme Court's ruling does not make all gun restrictions unconstitutional. Rather, it establishes clear standards for evaluating which laws are reasonable and which infringe on constitutional rights. Laws that unfairly or excessively restrict firearm ownership without a compelling public safety justification could be struck down. This is the court sending a clear signal not only to lawmakers but to every American citizen. Understand your rights, respect the law, and know that the court will intervene if your rights are threatened. For everyday gun owners, this decision has immediate practical implications. Reviewing your state and local laws is essential. In some states, regulations that were once considered standard may now be challenged as unconstitutional. Training programs, legal consultations, and staying updated on legislative developments are critical steps for anyone who owns a firearm. Ignorance is no longer an excuse. Your rights are secure, but only if you are proactive in understanding how they are protected and regulated. This ruling also carries a cultural message. Gun ownership is a deeply ingrained part of American identity, tied to personal freedom, self-reliance, and historical precedent. By issuing this decision, the Supreme Court reinforces that the Second Amendment is alive and relevant in today's society. It also signals that responsible ownership is expected, shaping public discourse around firearms and individual rights. Communities, advocacy groups, and media outlets will all respond to this decision, highlighting the importance of education, responsibility, and lawful exercise of gun rights. In practical terms, gun owners should take several steps immediately. First, assess your compliance with all current federal and state regulations. This includes ensuring that your carry permits, registration, and background checks are up to date. Second, consider additional safety and legal training to fully understand the responsibilities associated with firearm ownership. Third, stay vigilant about any proposed legislation that may arise in response to this ruling. Knowledge is your most powerful tool to protect your rights and avoid legal complications. The Supreme Court's ruling is also a reminder that rights and responsibilities are inseparable. Your constitutional right to keep and bear arms is protected, but it comes with obligations that demand attention and action. Failing to understand these obligations could lead to serious consequences, even for law-abiding citizens. Conversely, embracing the responsibilities outlined by the court strengthens your rights and ensures that your actions remain within the legal boundaries established by the Constitution. Looking ahead, the broader implications of this ruling are significant. It sets a precedent that will influence debates over gun laws, public safety, and personal responsibility for years to come. It reinforces that the court takes Second Amendment rights seriously while also recognizing the need for responsible governance. Gun owners now have a roadmap. Know the law, respect the law, and act with awareness and responsibility. This is a moment to reaffirm your rights and commit to exercising them wisely. In conclusion, the Supreme Court has sent a message that cannot be ignored. Gun rights remain a protected aspect of American life, but the responsibility of owning and using a firearm has never been clearer. Every gun owner must take this ruling seriously, educate themselves, and act responsibly. Your rights are real, your freedoms are protected, but your responsibilities are now more visible than ever. The Supreme Court has spoken, and the message is loud and clear. Understand the law, respect the law, and ensure that you are exercising your rights in a way that upholds both the Constitution and public safety. The era of ambiguity is over. The court's message is firm. Gun owners must be knowledgeable, vigilant, and responsible. Ignoring this ruling is not an option. Whether you carry, collect, or use firearms for self-defense, your awareness of the law is the key to protecting your Second Amendment rights. Stay informed, stay compliant, and never underestimate the power of understanding exactly where you stand under the law. This is a new chapter for gun ownership in America, and your actions now will determine how you navigate this evolving legal landscape.